Now let's talk about more about the Mandiri Capital Indonesia commitment to driving sustainable growth in Indonesia digital economy with Dennis Pratishta, MCI Chief Investment Officer. Pak Dennis, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Mas Indra, for having me. So excited to be here.
Yes. So how does MCI integrate principles of its sustainable development into its investment in a digital economy?
Look, maybe I'll take a step back, right? Look, when it comes to Mandiri Capital Indonesia, we've always been very excited when it comes to social development goals as well as climate initiatives, right? You know, as we understand here today, climate is a big issue, right? Climate is a big issue. I mean, everyone feels it these days, right? So, you know, we've always been very pro in terms of thinking, how can we make an impact? How can we, us as an investor, and early stage companies, early to mid stage companies, how can we make an impact on becoming an enabler, on pushing climate and social development goals initiatives in Indonesia? Of course, you know, as I mentioned, right, we started a fund. We had the very first Indonesian Impact Fund, which focused on enabling technology, very early stage. We started this around 3 years ago. So we started this as a micro fund. Essentially, we were just piloting. We wanted to understand on how can we create an impact, essentially. And then following this, a lot of lessons were learned. Then now, you know, we rolled it up into a bigger fund. And now it's more focused towards climate tech, as well as we've got another fund up and running that focuses on digital housing ecosystem, but having a sustainable kind of angle when we talk about housing.
All right, so you mentioned you started about 3 years ago. So what's the result, and then what conclusion did you come up with that you guys decided, oh, we're gonna go bigger on this, and then we're gonna concentrate on climate tech, and then who are you working with on this matter?
Very good question. So yes, when we started 3 years ago, essentially we partnered up with the experts of impact, which is UNDP, right? They were the creators of the SDGs. So we didn't know anything about it. We know business very well, naturally, but we want to partner up with the best and the guys, the experts, essentially. And so we decided, hey, rather than, you know, doing a trial and error, let's just partner up with the guys that created the SDGs in the first place, which was UNDP. So we do the business sort of DD. They do the impact DD when it comes to having a look at companies. So all due diligence related to impact, so the impact framework, the impact due diligence and everything was all defined by UNDP.
Okay.
The lessons learned were basically, look, there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to impact, right? You know, we focused on several aspects of the SDG, right, Sustainable Development Goals, which were poverty alleviation, women empowerment, sustainable cities, you know, of course, food, and etc. Right? So there was a lot of sectors that we believe are ripe for Indonesia, are ripe for support and to be built that is suitable for the Indonesian market. But then, of course, you know, as I mentioned, for over the years, we see the government's initiative is now focused not only on SDGs, but also on climate. And this is a worldwide sort of effort right now, right? So we decided, look, we want to be able to have impact for this aspect, right? Us as a state-owned enterprise, us being, of course, as a state-owned enterprise, you have to become an agent of development. And naturally, we thought, look, we see right now digital tech, so VCs, most VCs are focused on digital tech in Indonesia, right? We contributed the development of the digital tech ecosystem in Indonesia during its early days. We contributed quite significantly. And we thought, look, we can do the same for climate tech ecosystem. We decided, hey, let's just focus our efforts right now, start setting up funds that has more focus on building the climate tech ecosystem in Indonesia. When I say climate tech ecosystem, and when we talk about enabling technology, so we don't talk about infrastructures and the likes, but it's more into early stage, mid stage sort of technologies.
Right. So as a VC, you know, convincing those investors like, oh, this is where we're gonna take your investment. What are the challenges, and then within the operation, and to convincing like, hey, this is going to be the future. This is going to be a good investment. Because at the end of the day, people who invest, they're thinking like, how am I going to make my money back at the end of the day?
That is true. That is always the case. Look, we have to take a step back, right? As a VC, we're not a foundation.
Okay.
Foundation, you're not concerned about getting your money back, right? It's creating an impact. That's it. For us, what we focus on, of course, is generating returns and making an impact. So, of course, at the end of the day, when you take a step back, businesses, you have to generate a profit to become sustainable. So that is the foundation. That's the underlying idea. We have to be able to identify businesses, technology or business or whatever it is, that can scale. That can scale, can generate profits, and become sustainable in the future. So that is the end goal. But of course, then we also partner up with the experts in this. As I mentioned, we partner up with UNDP. And of course, with climate tech itself, we decided to partner up with an Australian fund manager. Why we decide to partner up with an Australian fund manager is just because the climate tech ecosystem over in Australia, they're a next door neighbor, by the way, right? They're way more advanced. They've started developing the climate tech ecosystem since over 2 decades, whereas we're here in Indonesia and most Southeast Asia is quite nascent. So we decided, hey, let's partner up with guys that are experienced, so it's not a huge learning curve and it's not a lot of trial and error. So it's identifying the technologies that are available there and looking at the market in Indonesia, seeing what's suitable to bring over to Indonesia. They've got technology, they've got experience, they've got knowledge. We've got market. So the idea is to invest over companies in Australia, bring in the technology, bring in knowledge, experience to jumpstart the climate tech ecosystem over in Indonesia. So essentially, when we try to fundraise, when we try to convince our investors, they understand that, number one, our focus, of course, returns, right? Number two is, of course, finding suitable technology and businesses that are suitable for Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And again, as I mentioned, since we're not trialing and error, we're already partnering up with an expert, they're more convinced. Yeah. They're more easily convinced. Those are the fundamentals, essentially.
There's so many things I still want to ask, like you mentioned earlier, like the women empowered startups and all that kind of stuff. But before, like I'm running out of time. So looking ahead, what are Mandiri Capital's long-term goal and aspiration regarding its involvement on ESG and climate tech investment landscape throughout the country, or maybe the region?
Yeah. Well, ESG is very wide, right? We got to choose our focus. We got to choose our battles, essentially. Whereas right now, we see there's a lot of impact that can be made from climate tech. So our future going forward, of course, as I mentioned, sustainable development goals, we're focused on housing. That's why we have the digital housing ecosystem and also climate tech. So these are our focus we see right now that we can create an impact. What we want to do, our goal at the end of the day, is to jumpstart the climate tech ecosystem. So that means once it's vibrant enough, I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of investors, a lot of capital coming in, a lot of capital that are contributing towards climate tech. That means a lot of founders that are basically trying to innovate in this space. And of course, which means one thing, which means we're able to deliver a better future in terms of climate, right? All right. That's what we want to do.
All right. Pak Dennis, thank you so much for sharing with us. I think we need to have you back because there's still so much that we need to discuss on this matter, and then it looks like we're just starting out. So I look forward for more of you at See Today.
Looking forward to the invitation. Thank you, Mas Indra, for having me.
All right, with that, we're going for a break. When we return, we'll have more business and economic updates here on the See Today Business. Stay tuned.